You're listening to the Sixers Beat with your host, Derek Bodner, right here on LibertyBallers.com and LibertyBroadcast.co.
Welcome, everybody. This is Derek Bodner. I'm joined by Rich Hoffman, who never, ever, ever misses the record button after we start talking. How you doing, Rich?
Never. Hey, man, I've been in Minnesota for a week where it's freezing.
Yeah,
Minnesota. They say you betcha all the time too.
I picture it kind of like an Alaskan Sarah Palin accent, which is probably completely wrong, but I don't have a whole lot of experience in Minnesota. So Rich was in the frozen tundra. We were left here to our own devices. Been a while since we had one of these. We missed last week, so we got a lot to catch up on. It's mostly going to be about the trade deadline, which is coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Is the last day to make trades for the season, or at least until you're eliminated from the playoffs, which for the Sixers is usually pretty early, but might be different this year. Anyway, before we get into all that, we do have to start with last night's Sixers Wiz game. Sixers pulled out another win, which seemed like they were destined to lose. Markelle Fultz made his first public comments since October, I believe. And Kristaps Porzingis is out with a torn ACL, and they need yet another replacement for their Eastern Conference team. Where do you want to start with that, Rich?
Let's start with the most important thing. Usually I'm a guy who says, let's do the worst news first. And I think whether or not it's bad news, it's been a steady stream of bad news, but Fultz seems like the most important topic.
Yeah, let's see, where to even go from this? So he basically said, I'm trying to pull up your quotes from theathletic.com this morning, but he basically said it's taken longer than expected. It has been difficult. He has to relearn the shooting mechanics.
Kind of said that unprompted too, because, in this weird PR sort of setup where Caron Butler was asking him the questions,
which you really want to know what people want to know why his first time speaking was a 50-second interview with Caron Butler on TNT. They share the same agent. Just point blank. That's why it happened. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, which is kind of infuriating to us. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, completely. And it should be, and quite frankly, it should be infuriating to fans too, because you don't get 50-second clip on TNT. You don't get the chance to, ask a follow-up question, probe him, there's only one person there. It's not a good avenue to get information, which is why an agent would love that avenue to get their message out.
But it was kind of revealing that unprompted, he did say, yeah, I think Butler asked him about, I think he read the medical jargon that they, with the scapular injury or whatever it is. And Fultz just came out and said, yeah, it's taken me a while to relearn my shot. It's been a much slower process than I thought it would be. And I'm paraphrasing there, but that is essentially what he said. Yeah, and then after the game, we asked Brett Brown what is keeping him out of practice, because as me and the rule is for the NBA, if you do not practice fully, then the team is not required to make that player available.
Right. The rule is, even if you're not playing in games, you have to be made available within a week of being a full participant in practice, which in a key way is different than being on playing in 5-on-5 scrimmages. Now, you might ask, if a player is able to play 5-on-5, what possibly would he not be cleared to do?
Yeah. Brett Brown, again, who we like and who I think both of us have pointed out on Twitter, is being thrust in front of this issue more than any of the other ones. And there's been a few during his time here. I'm pulling up the quote now, but his answer was conditioning.
Yeah. It's, he doesn't go through everything. There are some drills that I take him out of, but he goes through a lot. He goes through a large majority of the practice. It isn't 100% yet, which is key. It's really like the talking point he has to get in, but it is a very large majority of our practices. Okay, so what drills are you taking him out of? When I feel there's some conditioning stuff, I'll take him out of it, but it's not much. Well, why don't you want him doing the conditioning stuff? Because I feel like he looks like he hasn't played basketball for a while, so I take him out. Now, granted, he was cleared for 5-on-5 a month ago. He was cleared medically 2 months ago. Are there drills that Markelle has held out of that have to do with his shoulder? Not entirely, no. Again,
on top of that, he has a shoulder injury. This is not where you're immobile for a few months.
His conditioning should not have gone to shit, correct. Yeah.
So this is
still
extremely frustrating.
This is not a tough read between the line. When is Markelle going to play? Well, Markelle will play when he can shoot. Okay, well, when is Markelle going to talk to the media? Markelle is going to talk to the media when he's able to play. It's really that simple. That's what the team is trying to do. From their perspective, I get it. This is a difficult situation. You're going to want to protect Markelle as much as possible. He's going to have to face some real questions when he does come back. Here's what I'll say, though. Those questions aren't getting any easier. I think they think if he comes back and plays well and shows that he's through the injury, then the questions will be a little less pointed in nature. Which, okay, maybe if he comes back and he's exactly who he was at Washington, that would be the case. Not entirely. You're still going to want to know why in the heck you missed 3/4 of a season. But the questions won't be as severe. But look, what do you think the odds are that right when Markelle comes back, we see him come off a pick and roll and shoot a three off the dribble? 2%, maybe.
You mean like TJ McConnell?
Right, he hit one last night. He had a Dario one-handed dunk, an Amir three, an Amir airball, a Jared Bayless oop, and a TJ McConnell off the dribble three in 1 quarter of basketball. It was insane.
Put that quarter in a time capsule.
Right, it'll never happen again. But this isn't a realistic outcome for Markelle. He's going to come back in, and even if he looks good, even if he gets to his spots, even if you see that live dribble, even if he's hitting 15-foot pull-up jump shots, there's going to be some aspect of his game where you're going to see the side effect of having to, quote-unquote, relearn his shot. Markelle's words, not mine. There's going to be some side effect of that, and because of that, you're still going to get these pointed questions. Quite frankly, and there's some people who think that if we press people on Markelle, then we don't like Markelle. That's not it at all. Our job is to get the story, hopefully in an unbiased way, and to get all the information and present that to you, the fans. And we're going to have to do that job if Markelle is not ready to go right when he steps on that court. So I don't think and the only other option, maybe if you want to say, what's his chance of coming back and being 100% with his jump shot right away, right when he comes back? Well, in order to do that, I really think you're probably going to have to come back next fall. And if he comes back next fall, even if he's 100%, that's going to be one hell of a storyline. He's going to be asked those questions anyway. So I don't really know what I don't think their strategy of protecting Markelle is going to matter in the long run, because at the end of the day, he's going to have to answer these very same questions anyway. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. And to even go beyond their strategy, and I totally agree. I don't think he's going to have to face questions at some point. That is absolutely, that's a fact. But looking at what their strategy should be in terms of what's best for him in terms of his on-court development, I think, I've said this a few times on this podcast that I would shut him down for the year. They really need to start looking at that, because, it's very clear and was made even more clear last night that his shot is what is holding him back at this point. What do we have? 31 games left?
Yes, 31 games.
31 games, and this team is in the 8th seed right now. And there are a million teams around them, and Detroit just got Blake Griffin, so they're looking better. So, if they want to make the playoffs, that is going to be an extremely weird, it's going to be awkward to reinsert him into the lineup. Whose minutes are you taking? You taking TJ's minutes for a guy who can't shoot?
I went back and I checked. So Markelle's last game that he played in college was February 18th. So, you go another 11 days and you're going to be at a point where he didn't play any more college basketball. From that time until now, he will have played 3 summer league games, 2 preseason games, and 4 regular season games. And that's it. And that's all the competitive team basketball he has played in a 12-month span. So you've got a 19-year-old kid who has a crazy adjustment to the NBA. And look, that's a very real adjustment. Most of his peers have already gone through that adjustment period months ago. He's going to be hitting the NBA season in mid-stride when everybody's up to game speed. And now he has to relearn the most important aspect of the game in 2018. This is, like you said, this is going to be a real... Look, if he comes back after the All-Star break, I think there's 27 games left after the All-Star break. You probably do it. If he comes back at first day of March, probably about 20, 23 games left. You probably do it. But if you get into mid-March and there's 15 games, 12 games left, you can't bring this kid back in the middle of a playoff race. It's not fair to the rest of the team.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the first point. And then here's the second point. It's not fair to him either.
Yeah.
He will be, oh my God. Can you imagine if they're playing against, I haven't looked at the end of their schedule, but let's say there's a big game against Milwaukee and they're playing for playoff seeding and the starters just do a great job and then they bring him in and he stinks the joint up and they just blow the lead right away. Now that wouldn't totally be any different from what we're seeing right now, but I mean, the microscope that kid is going to be under.
If he loses them one game, he's going to get killed. He's going to get killed by the fan base.
And I mean, just from what we've seen, the inconsistency in that shot, the inability to shoot it outside of 10 feet.
By the way, ever since we took those videos in like early, I want to say like January 13th, I'm just kind of throwing out a number, but it feels like that's around the right date. Ever since we took those videos of him taking a three back then, he hasn't taken another one in public. Everything is, 10 foot, 12 foot, turnaround, free throw, and that's it. That's it. And yeah, some of these look good. I'll give you that. But if he's not able to take long range jump shots and out in public, why would I have confidence that he's right on the doorstep of returning and being effective?
Yeah, and we can even argue. I mean, some of them looking good. I mean, some of them look terrible too.
They have.
I think you're right that shielding him from the media and except for Caron Butler is no good, but he can answer the questions better, in my opinion, when he's ready to actually play NBA basketball. And in my opinion, that's going to be next fall. It's just,
well, then somebody's got to talk about it. You can't say
absolutely.
Early January he's playing 5-on-5, and oh, by the way, early April he's still not playing, and have nobody other than the coach talk about it. And the coach at this point pretty much blows off the questions. And I'm right there with you. This shouldn't be Brett's job to answer this. This is Colangelo. This is front office. Where's Waldo? Where is Waldo? Why will he not talk about what is going on with his basketball team? Astounding.
It's true, man. And yeah, it's just what bothers me from the Sixers standpoint is them continue. I mean, Brett continues to insist that he's going to play at some point. I mean, he's clearly it's conditioning. I mean, I hope Brett realized like how ridiculous those answers he gave last night.
I mean,
were.
he kind of hesitated on H film. I think he knew he had to say something.
It's just
there's no way that after a month of 5-on-5 conditioning should be why he can't talk to the media. That's absurd.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, if I were them, I would have shut this down a while ago and told him, I would have had Colangelo speak, obviously, and I probably would have had Fultz speak too.
I mean,
then send him away. Seriously.
Siberia with a basketball and a trainer, yeah. I guess the one reason I'll say they might not want to shut him down, there's probably an emotional aspect for the athlete who's probably really fighting to get back, and it's maybe giving him a little bit of inspiration, the chance to come back. So even if maybe you're not confident he's going to get to where he needs to be with that jump shot, you leave that out there as maybe a carrot for him. That's really the only reason I can think of, because I'm sure Markelle wants to come back. I don't think he wants to be the guy who broke his jump shot and spent the year on the bench. But I think that's look, maybe he comes back right after the All-Star break. That's the only real way I see this being salvaged, though.
We'll see. I mean, because look, you mentioned this earlier. If he comes back after the All-Star break and looks like Washington Fultz, I'm not even going to be writing the happy story. It's going to be like a what the F story. This is ridiculous. But again, I also don't see that happening. So yeah, that was I honestly think that was the biggest story of last night's game. A nice win for the Sixers and Simmons potentially making the All-Star game, but that to me stuck out from last night.
I mean, it's so crystal clear. He's not He's not being listed as a full participant because they don't want him dealing with unscripted discussions with the media. And quite frankly, that's why I asked the question, what is he not able to do? Because I know the rules of when he's supposed to talk, and I wanted to see what their answer was, and it's pretty clear how they answered it. So before we head into last night's game, a real quick word from Simple Contacts. Are you like me, blind as a bat and lazy? Or maybe to phrase that in a nicer way, really efficient with your time? If so, I have the perfect solution for you, and one of my very favorite online services, Simple Contacts. Simple Contacts is a convenient way to renew your contact lens prescription and reorder your preferred brand of contacts from anywhere in minutes. It's vision care simplified. Need to renew your prescription? They have a 5-minute test that you can take right from their phone or computer. It's then reviewed by a licensed doctor, and you receive a renewed 1-year prescription and reorder your contacts right there. Please do note, though, that this is not a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. Simple Contacts offers you an unbeatable combination of convenience in doing it from your own home, speed in that it takes less than 5 minutes from start to end, reliability of being reviewed by doctors and licensed ophthalmologists, the choice of the brand of contacts you want, customer care for your order, and all at the best price point possible. As many can attest to, I am legitimately blind as a bat, and the last time I needed new contact lenses, I gave Simple Contacts a try. It truthfully couldn't have been any easier. Right from the comfort of my home and with a wonderfully designed app to make the process even easier. No setting up an appointment, no traveling to the doctor and sitting in the waiting area. And on top of that, it saved me money over what I paid the last time I went in to get my prescriptions refilled. Whether you already know your prescription and the brand that you want, or if you need your eyes rechecked, Simple Contacts is the way to go. In the past, I would put off getting my contact lenses replaced because I didn't feel like dealing with the hassle. No more. With Simple Contacts, I get the same trusted brands at a fraction of the price and in minutes. Best of all, our listeners get $30 off their first Simple Contacts order. To save $30 on your lenses, just go to simplecontacts.com/SixersBeat or enter promo code SixersBeat at checkout. Again, that's simplecontacts.com/SixersBeat or enter the code SixersBeat at checkout. Give it a try and you won't be disappointed. All right, moving on to last night's game, the secondary concern. Real interesting game. It felt like at times they should have lost that lead a half a dozen times. It felt like they should have gotten run out of the building even with John Wall. But then you look up and it's a wire-to-wire win based off of, incredible shooting and individual play. It was and then they're getting killed on the glass all night. A lot of that with Joel in the game. I think 12 of their 16 offensive rebounds by the Wizards came with Joel in the game. Turned the ball over a ton. Covington especially bad. Joel, oddly, was not the problem this time. But just a really unbalanced game.
Yeah, JoJo left his box out techniques in Minnesota for the game because I don't know what he was doing on some of those. He was just standing under the basket. And yeah, it was like you said, there were long stretches of that game where I was annoyed watching them with how sloppy the offensive execution was. And I mean, just the lack of rebounding, it was frustrating. But I mean, when the Sixers were good last night, they were awesome.
Yeah.
We talked about all the time capsule plays, all the unlikely bench guys making those plays in the first half. But I mean, God, you had Ben Simmons. He only had 15 and 8, but I mean, God, they were a lot of highlight reel plays. That one finish he had where he kind of sliced in between 4 defenders, that was awesome. And then he hit I forget who the defender was. It was like the second play of the game where he crossed the hell out of somebody. He was great. JoJo from the what the Sixers call the Malone line, which is sort of about 15 feet away in between the baseline and the wing. He was just money, and he splashed in. I think it was 3 top of the arc threes too.
Yep.
Very, very good from him. Dario, again, just continues to build on this really solid season he's having. 20 points on 8 of 14 shooting, 7 boards. And Redick made some good shots off the move. So, it was a weird game in that I thought for close to half of it, the Sixers were pretty dreadful because I think Brown called those turnovers rogue, and some of those Covington turnovers were just maddening. I don't know what he was seeing, but it's kind of hard to complain when you win wire to wire against a team that had won 5 games in a row.
Yeah, I mean, look, when everyone in your starting lineup outside of your point guard who can't shoot makes at least 2 threes. You had Covington 2 of 7, Dario 2 of 4, Joel 3 of 7, and Redick 4 of 5. You stand a pretty good chance to win. And Joel was funny because on the one hand, like you said, he'd get caught under the rim. He wouldn't box out. He'd give up those kind of long rebounds because he just wasn't doing his job. And then he'd pull down a contested rebound in traffic, and I think he ended up with 13 on the night. So it's weird saying he was the issue on the defensive glass, but he really was. Just a really weird game. Your turnovers not coming really from, again, Embiid, I think, had, 1? Simmons had 5, and Simmons had been doing better in that regard for a while there. But 5 from Covington were just killers. It was just a real, like you said, excellent 1 minute, highlight reel, and then just complete slop. And that was a team that was coming off a 5-game winning streak without John Wall, too. And they've beaten some pretty good teams, too. I don't 100% know how they did it. I kind of think there's a little smoke and mirrors.
You turned to me in the first quarter, and you were like, I can't believe this team won 5 straight games.
I still can't. I'd have to go back and watch those games that they play, because that does not seem like a team that has the depth or the talent to beat some of the teams that they did. But overall, that was a pretty good win for the Sixers. And while they have kind of been up and down of late, I think they've lost 4 of their last 6. Wins have come against the Heat and the Wizards, and those are 2 real important victories. Yeah,
and now they have a nice run into the All-Star break here. They have and even after the All-Star break too, they've been up and down all year. That's why, when I was in Super Bowl land, they lost 4 of 5, but it was hard to get too worked up about it, just because obviously that loss to Brooklyn, or the Brooklyn game just seemed like a disaster on the defensive end. But they've been up and down all year, and they've had longer stretches of bad basketball than that. So it just seemed like they'd bounce back. And now they have, you want to talk about the injury luck going their way?
Yeah. Well, I'll say about the up and down, excuse me, the up and down. It seemed like throughout the season, it would be weeks where you'd be up. Like you'd be 8-3, then you'd lose 9 of 10, then you'd win 10 of 14. Like you'd go through really pronounced spells.
Yeah,
this seems very game to game inconsistent.
Yeah, this was a mini one. So yeah, I think what do we got? We got Blake got just traded, right?
Yeah.
So the Clippers are a much lesser team. DeMarcus Cousins on Saturday night. Is that the right order? Is it Pelicans first? It's one of those 2. It's Pelicans Clippers Friday, Saturday.
You're
and obviously those are and those are diminished. And then
and then the Knicks and the Heat, Bulls, Magic, Wizards, Heat. Like these are, and then you got the Cavaliers, who are a complete shit show right now. So you're finishing out the month here with some very winnable games for sure.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to pretend that Brown talks about this all the time. They've lost a lot of bad games this year. The ones I'm thinking, and a lot of bad games at home too. I wonder how many teams have lost to the Lakers, Suns, and Kings at home at the end of the year. I bet you it's probably among Eastern Conference teams. At the end of the year, my guess would be that nobody else has pulled that trifecta off.
Yeah.
So look, they got to go out and beat these teams, but they're right there in front of them. And, I'm sure they're going to have to play a little bit more consistent basketball last night, but that was a nice win in front of 26 Eagles chants, I think I heard last night. And
sounds about right, yeah.
2 Foles skull numbers, too. I got to say, too, there were a few people who were annoyed by those. There's nobody in the world who gets more annoyed by Eagles chants coming out of nowhere than me. God, when somebody does that in a bar, my blood pressure just shoots up. It's so annoying. Man, they just won the Super Bowl. They could have done that the whole night, and I would have said it was justified.
Honestly, and I'm kind of with you. I don't it doesn't really annoy me. But it also seems like it's a little too, it's one thing to do an Eagles chant in the week before or after the Super Bowl. It's another thing when you're doing an Eagles chant in July, and you'll see
I'm
Sixers.
With you. And if we hear this in April, I'll start complaining just like you.
Right. But you'll go to a Phillies game in July, and it's like, come on, guys, what are you even chanting about? OTAs? No, come on, stop.
No, they're just chanting it to be loud.
But anyway, moving on to but my only complaint last night with the Eagles chants was they never really got it in unison. I felt like it could have been better. That was the only thing that really annoyed me. A little more coordination, I think it could have had more impact. Outside of the Foles one seemed the best.
That I think people are going to keep doing that for forever too. At Eagles games 10 years from now, people are still going to be doing the full skull chant, deservedly so too.
All right, moving on to Chris Stapps and the vacant All-Star spot. Porzingis obviously tore his ACL last night, or probably more accurately Tuesday night, because I'm not sure exactly when this will get out. Leaving yet another vacant Eastern Conference reserve to be replaced. So you've had, Kevin Love go down? Kevin Love go down, and Andre Miller took his spot. Then you had...
Andre Miller? Come on. He's playing in the senior league.
Well, and he's still jumping the same height, too. You had Andre Drummond take his spot. And then you had... Christ, I'm throwing off my game now. Who's the second injury? Oh, Wall. So you had Andre Drummond replace John Wall. Then you had Goran Dragic replace Kevin Love. Now with Kristaps Porzingis out, you have a lot of speculation whether or not it could be Ben Simmons' turn. Do you think it should be?
I think it would be justifiable. I think we talked about this a little bit last night. Goran Dragic should not be an all-star.
Right. And that's the one that's going to hurt him.
And that's the one that might screw with Ben here, because there's another deserving guy who could replace Porzingis here, and that's Kemba Walker.
Do you know the rules on Blake Griffin?
It's a great question. I
have no idea. Because Adam Silver just typically goes down the list of who the coaches voted for. Coaches wouldn't have voted for Blake Griffin because Blake Griffin was in the Western Conference when that vote happened. So Adam Silver would have to go pretty much against his protocol, which isn't, I don't think, set in stone. It's just kind of precedent. I'm not sure he would do that, but this is a pretty extenuating circumstance too.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to put Blake Griffin in, that would be very deserving if you did break the protocol. I don't think he's going to put him in. If you get traded, I don't know. We'll see. Let's keep it to Kemba and Ben though. Kemba's on a worse team, but he's having a really good year. And here's
my rebuttal: that Kemba and the Hornets are like a plus 4.9 when he's on the court. Ben and the Sixers are like a plus 3.6.
He cut me off, man. I said It's not his fault they're a bad team.
Sorry.
Yeah, but that's true. And, God, what's Dragic when the Heat play? I mean, they have a negative point differential in general, too, which, I don't know. That one really, there's no way Dragic should have been an all-star over Simmons.
Nope. It's teams looking at the standing and picking a player. Or coaches, looking at the standings and picking a player. It's maddening.
So do you think that Simmons or Kemba would have, because isn't Silver basically looking at the coaches' selections and just picking the next player?
Well, right now the win gap is only 3 games. Like the Sixers have 3 more wins than the Hornets. But that's not the question. The question is, what was the gap when the coaches voted on it? And I'm not entirely sure exactly when the coaches voted on it. I feel like the Hornets were probably in a slump, so that might help Ben's chances. But I also think the coaches are going to dock Ben because he's a rookie, and Kemba's a much more established name. And if I'm being honest, I think Kemba is having a better season, and I think he's more deserving of it. Which frustrates me, because if you had taken these 4 guys that we're talking about, Kemba Walker, Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, Goran Dragic, I would have had Kemba Walker as the most deserving all-star of that group. Second would have either been Ben Simmons or Andre Drummond. Drummond's putting up really great stats. I'm not in love with him as a player. I'd probably go Ben Simmons over him, but certainly Ben Simmons at least third. So is Ben Simmons deserving of having one of these 3 reserve spots? Yes, I believe that to be the case. But because they fucked up and put Goran Dragic in there, I'm not sure he's deserving of being selected ahead of Kemba Walker, which is why if it doesn't happen this time, I don't think it's going to be a travesty.
What did Embiid say last night too? He said
he had some really creative language. Yeah, colorful.
Yeah, I think he said, "I hope they don't do the same bullshit they did the last few times," and then talked about he wanted Ben to join him in a dance number for All-Star Weekend, which he then proceeded to pretend was top secret material, even though I'm pretty sure they dance, for introductions for the All-Star game every year. But, they
told me I'm going to have to dance in front of everybody, so it would be good to have another teammate next to me dancing so I don't get scared, is the Joel Embiid quote.
Yeah. So that's what it comes down to. I totally agreed with your rankings. And, I think the gap between Simmons and Walker, Kemba's having the best year. The offensive responsibility he has on that team is pretty crazy. Ben's a better defender. So, I think that helps sort of close the gap a little bit. Kemba, I would take him over Ben too. So like you said, not, this particular selection wouldn't be a travesty, but the whole process of putting Dragic and Drummond in first is just ridiculous.
Yep. No, the travesty was the last one. Before we get to the trade deadline, a real quick word from our sponsor, Stamps.com. If you're like us, you probably have a million things on your mind and looking for any and every way to get things done more efficiently. Luckily, these days you can get just about anything done online and on demand. Did you know that you can even get postage on demand with Stamps.com? Well, you can. With Stamps.com, you can print real U.S. postage for any letter or any package right from the comfort of your own home or office. All available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when it's convenient for you. Stamps.com will even send you a digital scale so you can weigh your letters and packages and print the exact amount of postage every time. And it's so easy to use. Just click print, mail, and you're done. Stamps.com will save you a ton of time. You can access all the services of the post office right from your desk. It's never been easier to send out your letters and packages. I recently helped organize a wedding for a family member and used Stamps.com to send out invitations and save the dates. And let me tell you, it couldn't have been easier, more convenient, or more economical. Exactly what I was looking for during a very busy and stressful time. I've even worked out a special offer with Stamps.com for my listeners that includes a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale without long-term commitments. Go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in BEAT. That's Stamps.com, enter BEAT. All right, we have the trade deadline coming up now I guess now it would be, maybe 18 hours from when we're recording this. It will be Thursday at 3 p.m. So we will go to the mailbag, which we got a number of different questions in from readers. And here we go. I am real organized. All right. So the first question from Luke Smith, L_Glover71. What would it take to get Marco Bellinelli from the Hawks?
Second round pick, right?
Oh, it sure as hell better not be a first. They're not getting that.
I mean, what else could you give?
You could always give players. I think one of the guys that's kind of under the radar that could be traded is Rashawn. He's clearly just out of this organization's plans. He's lost favor of the coaches. I don't think the coaches trust him. So if you have a guy who maybe another team values more than the Sixers, it makes sense that could be used as a trade chip. I don't think you're going to have to throw in more than a second round pick to get Bellinelli, though. I feel like the market for him should be a second.
Yeah. And
good shooter, too. Good shooter.
Yeah. And how many seconds do the Sixers have this year? I'm looking at it. It seems
4?
like 2.
Is it only 2? It might have been 4, but they traded. I don't remember.
No, there's 3. Okay. So they have the better of the Brooklyn or Cleveland second round pick, Brooklyn. The better of the Clippers or Knicks second rounder.
Yep. And then their own. So it could still be 5 picks in this draft, which is amazing.
Yeah. What would you be okay with trading a second round pick for Bellinelli?
Would I burn Philadelphia down? No. I think he'll help. I think they need help on the bench. I think they need shooting off the bench, which is something Brett Brown mentioned yesterday before the game. I think he's probably worth a second round pick. I'm just not sure. I think they still have a pretty good chance of making the playoffs, even though Detroit is playing better. But I think there are still I think Basketball Reference had him at about a 90% chance, and 538 had him 88%. So they're both pretty bullish. And I think looking at their schedule, looking at how they're played, looking at how healthy they are, I think they should have a pretty good chance of making the playoffs. So at this point, it's like, okay, well, what's he really going to add? Is he going to help them win a round? Well, I don't know if I see them winning a round. Is it going to help them make up the 4 or 5 game difference between themselves and the Wizards or the Cavs? Cavs are playing like dog shit. The Wizards are without Wall for an extended period of time, but I'm not sure I see this team being consistent enough to do that either. So, am I okay with it? I guess I'd be okay with it, but I'm not necessarily sure. Like, I think I like draft picks more than the Sixers do. So, this would not be the worst usage in the world of sending those away.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I think they need scoring more than, and shot creation more than pure shooting. I would personally rather have TLC or Justin Anderson or somebody take up those minutes on the bench. And even if they're bad, I just like to see them play in big games.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think whenever I talk about these second round picks, because they have, I think, 10 coming up in the next 3 years, they're going to sell a lot of them. And the ones they don't sell, they're going to use on stashes. So I think when I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, or like, I won't hate it. And that's really what I just said. I won't hate it. It's really because I can think of so many other ways they're going to use it. And I just don't see them sticking around.
It's a good point. So yeah, I mean, and for that reason, if they decide to trade a second for Bailey, whatever.
But I mean, it's like you said, he's my question has always come back to what's really the end goal. And I don't think any of these guys that we're going to talk about is really going to change that. Like if you ask me probability wise, what's the chance to get out of the second round or out of the first round? And what's the chance that they make the playoffs? I'm not sure either of those two probabilities really change all that much. Like the Sixers just aren't good enough to really take advantage of being a buyer at the deadline, which brings us to another question. It was from, from Rexadelphia at Rexadelphia. Are the Sixers buyers or sellers at this year's trade deadline?
If anything, buyers. The real answer to me is probably neither. But
see, I still think the most likely move is trying to trade Jared Bayless. Now, I don't know if that is most likely to happen because I think they're going to have a little bit of a tough time doing that. Like, I think there just aren't very many teams right now that are willing to give up cap space in 2018. So I'm not sure if they're going to be successful doing that, but I feel like that is their priority, which to me makes them a little bit of a seller.
Okay. I would even call that buying because that's such a bad deal.
Buying cap space?
Yeah. So, okay, in terms of that, what do you think the market is generally for Bayless in terms of what else you'd have to attach for a team to eat that contract?
See, I think this is where you might start getting in the Rashawn Holmes territory.
See, that doesn't bother me.
Well, like Rashawn and a second round pick is what I was getting at. But that's where I think he could end up being used as a sweetener. Like a physical. Remember when the Sixers would make those trades and Brett's like, this is a tangible guy I can touch. But I think a physical, tangible guy that they can touch who has shown a little bit in the NBA might be a little more intriguing than a second round pick. So maybe you package that with the second you get out of Bayless' contract. I'd be okay with that just because I think Rashawn is so far out of their plans. And moving Bayless is clearly something you want to do, that I would be okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't take away the first terrible move completely. That was still ridiculous, signing him to 3 years. But if it was just Rashawn, the second round pick, that's a deal they should be making. I would be on board with that for sure.
Oh, let's see. From Okay There Guy, Leroy on Twitter. How would the Sixers need to finish for it to be considered a failure of a season?
Well, I don't really think of the team's win-losses in terms of failure.
And even more than that, I don't think of making the playoffs as a success or failure. Like if they win 40 games and miss the playoffs rather than 41 games and make the playoffs, I don't think Brett goes from although I know this will end up on Twitter, I don't think Brett goes from a good coach to a bad coach. I don't think the season goes from a success to a failure. I think it means they lost one more game than maybe you hoped they would have. But I do think, like, if they just completely tank, and not intentionally, but unintentionally tank, and end up, what are they at, 26 wins? If they end up at like 35 wins, then I think that would be a failure. But not so much making the playoffs or not. But I'm with you. I think most of what I judge success or failure is how Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and Markelle Fultz play.
So far,
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3 is really good, and then the other third is a complete failure. So
Sixers season, meatloaf in a nutshell.
Yeah. So if they make the playoffs, I think the Sixers feel pretty good about the spot they're in right now. I mean, they obviously have had some crazy ups and downs, and God, I mean, some of these losses just they take 2 years off of your life, with just how they blow these leads, and it's just spectacular. But at 26-25, with a really easy schedule on the way in, Simmons playing well, even though still got to figure out the jump shot, and that's the thing. But Embiid healthy and playing really well.
Embiid's played more games and more minutes than JJ Redick.
Yeah.
If you had told me that at the beginning of the season, I would have lost my mind. Granted, part of that is because JJ's missed 11 games, but still, Embiid's been very available. Very available.
And even the minor guys. I mean, Saric has had a really good season.
Yep.
So, for the most part, if they keep this up, we'll see where they finish. I mean, if they keep this up, I expect them to be in the playoffs. So, I don't think there will be too many people calling the season a failure.
Correct. I'm right there with you. And I think the Dario development too. We talk about the top 3 guys and they're really being what matters. And by and large, that's true. But Dario stepping up the way he has and, showing that jumper and making what we think is a big step in that regard, which now makes him a lot more playable on the offensive end with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, even if he still has some defensive struggles fitting in. That's a huge step for his development. That's a huge step for him as an NBA player. And that's a big success for the season too. So I'm right there with you.
We had a lot of concerns about him coming in the season.
Yep.
Quiet concerns. And he has done a really good job answering a lot of those.
From Ron Zagorski, Zagorski_Ron on Twitter. What's Bayless shooting in the fourth quarter of the season? Don't have to get into this one. I checked it. 39% from the field, 35% from 3. Probably not as bad as you would have expected.
That all those misses feel magnified.
Well, what I will say, when I looked this up maybe a week, 10 days ago, when the Sixers were up by 6 or more points, he was shooting 22% from 3. So if it feels like every time the Sixers are up, Bayless misses a shot, it's pretty close to being true. Pretty close. All right, from CJ Branch at CJ Branch. What's up with the inconsistencies of Richaun Holmes in the lineup? We pretty much addressed that. The coaching staff doesn't trust him as a defensive decision maker. Like they don't trust that he's going to be in the right spots.
I had a guy on my flight home from the Super Bowl who a really nice Eagles and Sixers fan who, when we were talking about the Sixers, that was the main thing he wanted to know. I mean, he wanted to know about Fultz too. And when I couldn't really give him a good answer on that was the question that was bothering him the most. Why can't Richaun play? And I was trying to explain to him, I'm not saying I agree with the coaching staff 100%, but I do see their point in that he makes the plays that stand out and jump off the screen. And then the things that are sort of hidden that are secretly harmful, he racks up those. And that's kind of what I was trying to explain to him.
Yes, he does. I had one person ask me, like, who has the lowest basketball IQ on the team? I think that's an overly simplified way of looking at it because I think there's, some guys really recognize and do some things well, some guys on the other end don't. And I think if you were talking about defense, Richaun might have the lowest defensive IQ on the team. And I think I would have a longer leash for him than the coaching staff does, just because I think his offense is legitimately valuable. It's legitimately unique and something that the Sixers don't have anyone else who can really provide. So I would probably have a longer leash for him. But I also don't think they're wrong when they say, look, we can't trust this guy to be in the right spots defensively. And when your center is out of place, your entire defense breaks down. And that's where Rashawn is at. I think if you read between the lines, they're probably frustrated with his lack of progress in that regard. So are they wrong? I don't know if they're wrong. I think I would probably have a longer leash. But I understand at least the viewpoint of why they don't play him. And that's why I think he should be moved. Because I think he does have talent. I think he does have a role in this league. He's got to make not one step, but 2 or 3 or 4 steps defensively. But I think somebody's going to want to take a chance on that talent.
As not in a sneakily bad basketball IQ, but an inconsistent one, just from watching the games recently, TJ McConnell commits some of the craziest fouls.
Yes. Yeah. Some of the fouls.
He has no idea when they're in the penalty. None.
And the whole team fouling jump shooters. I swear to God. TLC and McConnell are both bad at that, but really everybody seems like they just love Trevor Booker. God bless you. Close out under control next time, please. All right, moving on. But yes, I agree with you. From John Barber at Joba_dog. How do you feel about those Fultz dunks? You might not have seen these. They were from Friday night, I want to say.
I saw one of them.
Okay. Yeah. He'd basically come from full court, do a couple in and out dribbles, change direction, and throw it down.
Look, it's great. I mean, he's a nice athlete. I don't care.
I mean, I care insofar as that is a big reason why we were so high on him last June. Like his quickness, his ball handling, his ability to keep his dribble live, his body control, his explosiveness. Those are all great skills that he legitimately does have. And as much as we might be down on not Fultz, but frustrated with the situation, don't read that as us not recognizing the talent that he has. But in terms of coming back from his injury, that's not why he's not playing. He's not playing because, they're not sure if he can run up and down the court and dunk. He's not playing because they don't know if he can shoot. And when I see him consistently shoot from 15 to 17 feet, that's when I will get excited about the return of Markelle Fultz.
Yeah. Hey, man, I didn't forget how talented he was. I didn't forget how smooth and, some of the nice, strong finishes he can make in traffic, even though he's not, a Dennis Smith level athlete. I know about all that stuff, but guess what? Until we can see him shoot, that stuff doesn't matter.
All right. So Brian McGuire on Twitter, why have the Sixers provided no Fultz update, and where is Colangelo? Great question. I agree.
Yeah, I think we already talked about this one.
And by the way, if the Sixers make a move of any consequence, he will talk probably on Friday. Maybe Thursday. I forget which. I think it was Friday last year, right? I think he talked the day after. But yep. Regardless, he will talk if they make a move of consequence. He might even talk if they don't make a move, because you kind of have to explain why you didn't make a move. And unless it's a major move, major move, which I give about a 1% chance of happening, 95% of those questions are going to be at Markelle Fultz. Like, you will have him give an opening statement. You'll probably have 1 or 2 follow-up questions about the move that they make. And then it will be all Markelle Fultz from there. And he should have talked before then. We said earlier about how Brett has been left on an island maybe more than he ever has, because he's had to explain the unexplainable situation. And right now, we kind of have to ask him some pointed questions because we have nobody else that we can talk to. Brett will frequently say, well, you'll have to ask Markelle about that, or you'll have to ask the trainer about that. We can't. We don't get access to the training staff. We don't get access to Markelle. We don't get access to Brian Colangelo. Everything has to run through Brett. So when we get a chance to talk to the guy in charge, yeah, that topic's going to come up. So hopefully this week. If on Friday I get Jared Bayless's contracts off the books and I get the chance to ask Brian Colangelo about Markelle Fultz, that's a win for me. That's a huge win. Great trade deadline. Good job, Brian.
Well, neither of those things are going to happen now.
I will say, good on them for having no practice tomorrow. Very happy about that. From Omar Chumar, What am I possibly missing about playing Booker at the 4? Is there something that could be improved upon over time?
So Booker and Embiid have played 210 minutes together, and they have a positive 1.1 net rating. So it's not quite as disastrous as a lot of people think, but to me, that just screams that Embiid can play with anybody. He's awesome. He can make it work. To me, that can't get any better. It's just clunky on the offensive end. It's just not the way you'd want to play. To me, I would rather them go wing heavy and bump Covington more over to the 4 when you have to. And let's see more of Anderson. Maybe Anderson plays a little 4 too. But it's funny. It looks so bad and the results aren't quite as bad as I thought. And, I think we're starting to see Brett, even though he's played, and maybe perhaps because he's played all of those young players and casts off for all those years, he's just like a lot of NBA coaches. He trusts the veterans for some reason.
Yeah, and I mean, he trusts the veterans that are also probably his more reliable players. And that group sadly includes Booker, even though he's not a fit at all. And, I think when you look at that 1.1 net rating, I think there's two ways to look at it. First of all, I think there is Embiid's just good enough, like you said, that he can make oddball lineups work.
Especially against bench units, too.
Right. So when Embiid and Booker are on the floor, are they killing themselves? No, they're not. And because of that, you can say, okay, we can get away with this lineup for 10 minutes a night, which you can. But the question becomes much more, well, is that maximizing what you can get when Embiid's on the court? Because you already know when Embiid's off the court, you're going to struggle to stay with them. So you want to make up as much ground as you can when Joel's on the floor. And you have a guy in Joel who, when they're on the court, play at a plus 9.1 net rating. So outscore their opponent by 9.1 points per 100 possessions. So to drop that all the way down to 1.1 is really limiting their effectiveness. And then when you look at Booker with Amir Johnson, without looking it up, what would you guess a Booker and Amir Johnson lineup operates at?
Well, I mean, I think because you're asking me, let's go minus 10.
Minus 17 in 71 minutes. Minus 17 per 100 in 71 minutes. They score 94.4 points per 100, give up 111.4. So that really shows you, I don't think you're wrong when you wonder, what am I missing about Booker at the 4? I don't think he is a 4. I think he's a small 5 at this point in his career. But I think when he's with Joel, you can kind of make it work, or at least not get killed. Because Joel is that good, when you replace Joel, there's no fucking chance. So can it get better? I think maybe Booker can learn where to pick his spots better. Like, one of the things about Booker is he's always going to go for an offensive rebound. And that's what he does. But when you do that, you gum up the paint for a guy like Joel trying to post up. You make his life more difficult. So maybe Booker could learn maybe to play the baseline a little bit better, maybe to cut a little more frequently than he does, and not go for that offensive rebound. Maybe he can learn, there was like a 3 or 4 possession span last night where he tried to post up every fucking time when Joel was on the court. Maybe he could learn not to do that anymore. So maybe there are some margins that could be played, but is it all of a sudden going to be, a plus 8 per 100 lineup? No, I don't think Booker's a good fit with Joel. And, I think real early I put a tweet out that, these Booker and Embiid lineups have to stop. And it's not because plus 1.1 is getting you killed, but because there's better combinations out there. I agree with you. Put Cove at the 4. Let Ben Simmons defend the 4. Let Dario defend the 4. Like, fucking go Justin Anderson at the 4 when you're on the bench. I don't particularly care, especially when Embiid's in a lineup, because you can get away with so much. These Booker at the 4 lineups, I don't like either, and I agree with you. And I think Brett, like you said, wants his veterans out there, wants a guy that he trusts to make the right decisions, especially defensively. And Booker's one of his best in that regard, but it just the skill sets just don't fit. They don't fit.
Next question.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. From Harrison G. What's the most realistic trade deadline deal you can see happening for the Sixers?
Probably Bellinelli.
Yeah, if you're talking about acquisition, like I said, I thought maybe the most realistic was moving Bayless. But if you're talking about acquisition, Bellinelli, Joe Johnson, like those are the two names that are so irrelevant that will cost you virtually nothing that I could see the Sixers doing.
ISO Joe.
Talk about exciting, huh?
I'm not sure. It's not Brett's ball movement philosophy. I'm not sure he fits it with all those ISOs.
Oh, no, he doesn't, but I can see it. From Dave Talon? I don't know. Reports made it sound like BC would give up a first for Tyreek if Bayless was included in the deal. What's the likelihood of that happening?
Slim.
Yeah, I don't think they're giving up a first. And I clearly think as good as Tyreek Evans has played this year, I think 19, 5-5, they're really, really efficient, not turning the ball over. Like he's truly having the best year of his career. And I think he would help. Like I looked it up. I think it was like 46% of his half-court possessions were in the pick and roll, which Sixers just don't have right now. So would he make the team better? Yeah. But it kind of goes back to Bellinelli. Even though Tyreek is a better player, like what does that really mean? Are they beating, the Raptors or the Celtics in a series? No, I don't think so. And I think they'll make the playoffs anyway. So I think at the end of the day, you're probably looking at a first, at best, a second round exit. And Tyreek's a guy who you can't really keep around after this year. Because he signed a 1-year deal, he's going to have a cap hold of 120% of his current salary, which is like $3.9 million. Or the cap hold would be 3.9. He's making 3.3 now. And the max you could offer him without using cap space, meaning using his non-bird rights, is $3.9 million. So it's not even like you can acquire him, go out, spend the rest of your cap, and then go over the cap to sign him. That's not really an option. You either sign him with some of your cap space, or you're limited to 3.9. So if you want Tyreek Evans here long term, just go out and sign him next summer. Keep the draft pick. And if you want him here now, okay, sure. Like if you're talking about a second round pick, I'll take a flyer, see if maybe he can help you win around the playoffs. But I'm not giving up a first round pick for that. So the question becomes, if there's a small gain by adding Tyreek and there's a small gain by moving Bayless's contract, do those two small gains add up to a first round pick? And I just don't think I'm there quite yet.
Not for me. Yep. And it's the first round pick that is more the hold up here. I would not even, if they gave a second up for Tyreek, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even have to take Bayless's contract back. They just said, hey, the second round pick, whatever one it is, if it's the Brooklyn one, that's fine. And the Sixers decided, hey, we think Tyreek can get us, he can help us win another round. It goes back to the Bellinelli thing. That would be okay with me. But, in terms of giving up any sort of first that's like lottery protected or anything like that, I wouldn't do it. And I'm pretty sure the Sixers would just hang up on the Grizzlies there.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're at the level yet where they need to be giving up first round picks for the Tyreek Evans types. Nor do I think that's necessarily a good strategy for many teams. I do think let's say you got in the summer and Paul George said, look, if you can throw me a max, I'll come. Then you trade Jared Bayless for a first round pick. But that certainty, or at least that confidence, is crucial in being willing to make that move. I don't make that move now in February.
Agreed. Yeah. You have to know that you're using the 2018 cap space on something good long term.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So we're sitting here tomorrow night, emergency pod, because they made a big trade. Last guess. What is it?
The emergency trade? I mean, it's
just, what do you think they're going to do? Basically.
What do I actually think they're going to do?
Yep.
Nothing. I don't think they're going to be able to get rid of Bayless. And I mean, like, and the more I think about it, Bellinelli, I could see. But I mean, in terms of any sort of big move, in terms of buying or selling, I can't see it.
Yeah. No, Bellinelli was who I was going to say. And that's just speculation. I got nothing there. Anything else?
No, man. We got what do we got? A back-to-back coming up this weekend after after the trade deadline and parade here.
Is it back-to-back?
Yeah.
Hold on, I got the schedule right here.
How?
Yeah,
by the way,
Friday and Saturday.
I didn't see that game at all. How did Embiid look in the second game?
He looked okay. I believe that was the Pacers game?
Yes.
Embiid looked fine. He looked like he got fouled at one point and hit his right hand and was kind of holding it a little bit. That was my only real concern there. He individually, from a physical standpoint, he looked like he held up.
Well, that's encouraging because I would imagine they'll try and run that back this weekend.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's something they're gonna say. Okay, you play back to back, you went fine. Oh, but now you're not playing back to back. I think unless something happens, I think they're gonna stick with that plan. All right, well, before we head out, I just want to give a real quick shout out and dedicate this episode to a dear family member and my best friend, Sheba the cat, who lost his 4-year fight with cancer this week. Rest in peace, little buddy. Miss you. Love you.